Well, hi, everybody. Okay, anybody have any questions? No? Okay. All right. We're doing on time. We got a minute, so we'll give it a minute or two and let's see if anybody else joins us. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to cover chapters 7 and 8 today, which is writing job applications and writing cover letters. And what you're going to find in these two chapters largely isn't about how to word craft or uh, gain attention of somebody reading it as much as it is keeping it simple, keeping it straightforward, but being as perfect as you can. When I say perfect, I mean grammar, spelling, sentence construction, consistency of the cover letter with your resume, readability. That's really what this is about. To say it differently, I think where a lot of people, students who are in the market looking for career opportunity, um, don't spend enough time preparing and editing and rereading and perfecting the information they're submitting. In some cases, it's incomplete. An applicant, a business may ask an applicant for a resume, a cover letter, references, and maybe access to their social media. And in some areas, you don't complete those steps, or you think they'll be smart enough to figure it out. You've got to remember the early stages of this career process is a rejection process, meaning employers are trying to reject you out of the process. The game is for the employer, there are too many applicants for the positions they have. They can't possibly comb through their emails. So they look for inexpensive, easy ways to reject people out of the system to get the head count down to a manageable number. And the tools they use are software programs that check for sentence construction, grammar, spelling. They look for consistency in dates. They look for keywords in the resume and cover letters that might match up with the job posting. They look for background checks, any motor vehicle history, credit history, criminal history, social media. I mean, there's software programs out there that are relatively inexpensive employers can purchase that will comb through all of your social media posts, and it'll look for and kick out posts that might be offensive or discriminatory, or may imply or express certain behaviors that they are concerned about. So this is the early stages of this. Isn't look at me, I'm a good person, I did all these things, I have all these degrees and merits and whatever. That's not what it is. It's you're in a big pool of people and you're indistinguishable from others. So what the employer is doing is looking for reasons to get you out of the pool. Even if you're the perfect candidate and you misspell a word, you're out. There's no way back in. Doesn't seem fair, doesn't seem right, seems ridiculous, but that's the world we're in today. I was talking, I think Wednesday, with someone who, it was a technology job. It was a marketing technology job. I'd say middle level management. And the person that I was talking to had followed up with the employer to see where she was in the application process, and the employer told her that she had been taken out of the process, and it largely was because for this one position there were over 1,500 applicants. So this process that you're going into, you have to remember too that there are other people just like you at different levels of urgency or anxiety who are trying to find jobs just like you're trying to find them. And on the application side, there are actually programs that will submit your resume to hundreds or even thousands of employers all at once. I mean, it'll blanket the marketplace with resumes. And the employers have systems to check and balance that if this is a broadcast application, in other words, this employer is just one of 500 or 600 other employers, that'll be a reason. If they can determine that, they'll kick that out. So it's very competitive in the early processes of this. So the point of these two chapters is to take things slowly, carefully, and edit and review again. So let's go ahead and jump into the first chapter, chapter 7. So everybody see that? Yeah. Somebody give me a shout out, thumbs up.
Yes. We can see.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead. I just realized I didn't turn my speaker on, so I apologize for that. Okay. All right, right job application. So what's implied in this slide is that you're not clicking boxes and drop down menus necessarily. In many cases, you're completing the application and it's online. More often than not, employers, even small and mid-sized employers, will guide all the applicants to their website and their career application process. They want everybody to follow the same steps. So it's going to be rare that someone you might know in a company will take your paper resume and bring it into the system. They're going to, even with that, they're going to direct you to go into the company site, upload your resume, upload your cover letter, maybe upload your references to complete this. So writing job applications. So this chapter covers how applying for jobs, what an employment application is, and largely what it's not, applying for jobs with pre-printed applications, and applying for jobs online. So the goal in phase 3, so we're here in this middle box, applying for jobs, is to find and apply for jobs that are best fit for you. So to say this differently, this isn't about applying for as many jobs as you possibly can. It's really knowing yourself well enough and knowing what the job descriptions are out there and trying to do the best you can to match yourself to those job postings. The application is not something to get through quickly. Employers use software to screen out applications to find the best applicants to interviews. So there are forms. You want to we'll talk about how to prepare for this. Part of that is gathering the information from your resume in a bullet form point so that when you start applying, you're entering the same information consistently into each of these. Now, in some cases, like Indeed, when you post a resume, a company may see it and want you to apply on their website. So what you're going to need to do is ensure that the information you've posted online and LinkedIn, for example, or Indeed.com matches the information you provide in this online application with the company. If there's any discrepancy, you're going to be kicked out of the process. And the frustrating part is no one's ever going to tell you that. No one's ever going to explain it. In some cases, most people don't know why a software program would have kicked you out of the system, and they're not going to take the time to find out for you. Application forms are designed to gather consistent information to compare applicants. All right. This is a very important statement, consistent information to compare applicants. What you want to understand here in this process is that you must be consistent with the information you're providing to an employer, because that employer may be part of an industry group or a consortium where they share application information. So always be consistent. But the point here of this sentence is the word compare. You're not being evaluated as an individual against the job application requirements. They use the job application requirements to screen you into a pool that fit that. What happens after that is you, in the final analysis, let's say you're one of 10 or 12 people that have gone through all of these rejection systems and processes, and you're one of 12 people. What the employer is going to do now is start to compare you to the other 11 applicants. And they're going to look for information at that point that distinguishes you from those other 11. So up until this point in time, it's been really irrelevant about who you are or what you've done as much as you meet the job requirements. Qualifications, cultural fit, match with the job. Sometimes companies will imply from your job experience that you've been with companies with a certain culture that may be a good fit or may not be a good fit. Legal information needed to make job offers. They're going to need a correct spelling of your name. At some point, your social security number, your mailing address. Some of this will come from matching your information to your credit report, your background report. So remember, it's crucial to be complete, accurate, and honest. Preparation and practice for applying for jobs. This is not interview. This is preparing for jobs. So for paper forms, get copies to use for practice. You can get employment applications at almost any location. You can walk in, talk to the receptionist in most cases, and they'll have a form for you to complete. You want to follow the instructions exactly. Remember, the employer doesn't have time to think for you or sort things out or to guess about what your intention was. You've got to follow the instructions exactly. Read the entire application before you start to see how the sections are related. Sometimes you can learn things by the sequence of the sections that they're asking information on, and it give you insights into what they think is important or more important than something else. Great, use an application data sheet so they have all the information ready to copy and paste. So what this last line is saying is have a Word document where you've got your information, your dates of employment, your references, your information details, addresses, email addresses, what have you. So you're not typing into all of these things every time. You can copy and paste into these application sheets, and you're more sure that it's going to be consistent. What's an employment application? It's personal information. They're going to ask you for a lot of personal information. Sometimes they'll ask you for your current address and your prior address before that. And again, that's an effort on their part to match up with the background checks they do to ensure that they've got the right person and that the information you're providing is accurate. Education, what's your education, background, dates, what's your degree? You know, if you got a 2-year degree and it's an AAS degree, make it AS degree, not a 2-year degree or a junior college degree. Use the terminology the college uses exactly for your degree. What the title of the degree is. Is it business management? Is it business management, marketing and sales? Is it business management accounting? Is it a business management accounting certificate? Your employment history, again, a lot of what goes on in your employment history is forgivable if there's gaps in employment. Sometimes employers will ask you to explain that at a later time, but don't exaggerate in your employment history in terms of titles, positions, roles, and certainly be consistent. Your references, unless they ask for them specifically up front, don't provide them until you're asked for them. And you want to, when you're providing references, you want to spend time with the people that have offered to be a reference on what the nature of the work you're looking for, what you're excited about, and even coach them on what you want them or need them to talk about or say about you when and if they get called. Sometimes there's difficult application questions. Today, in today's environment, a lot of that is not mandatory, where at one point things about you personally were expected to be disclosed. Today, not so much. Permission release form for background checks. This is big. This is usually, if you're an electronic system on a company's website, it's the last question. It's a small print. There's 1 or 2 boxes. It's somewhat legal in nature, but in effect, what they're saying is that for you to complete the application, you have to give the company permission to use any means necessary to do a background check. You're giving him permission to check credit, your criminal history, your motor vehicles, your social media activity, all that. And then there's a signature of the application at the end. And most of the time, that's an electronic signature. References, don't include them in your resume, but they may be, if on an online job application, you may need to list them. Provide what employers request, exactly, the number of references, the type of references. Sometimes they'll be specific. If they ask for 4 and you give them 3, that's an incomplete application. It'll be kicked out. If they ask you for character references and you basically have employment references, it could be kicked out. Tell references you're listing them, get permission and thank them. I'd even say if ever they get a phone call or a contact, ask them to alert you to the fact they did get contacted. And then be sure that once you've completed the company's process, whether you get hired or not, get back to your references and let them know what happened and thank them again, because you may need them in the future. Use only references that will recommend you highly. Yeah, if there may be somebody that's an acquaintance of yours, they're going to be asked questions where they may say, well, gee, I don't know, or I'm not sure, I've only known them for a short time. That's not going to be helpful for you. Most of the time, references are used for confirming character questions. Are you person of integrity? Do you follow through? Do you make promises and keep promises? That's kind of largely what that becomes. Legal constraints restrict some employers from giving references. What this means is that a prior employer may tell the current employees that they cannot offer letters of reference for you, who you're a former employee. There's a legal liability to it. It's not that the company's mean or not cooperative. It's that there's been enough legal activity where an employee has given a former employee a reference, and it's created a problem. So policy manuals sometimes will tell you, if you're an employee, that you cannot provide references. In some respects, what the company wants is anybody that wants to contact them about a prior employee, they want them to contact human resources. They don't want them contacting you, because HR will understand what the laws are and how to answer questions or not answer questions appropriately, legally. Culture references about the jobs you seek and skills required so you can emphasize these. So they basically got to, try to reinforce the information and interest you have in a particular company so that it's consistent. Difficult job application questions. Basic bottom line is be yourself and be truthful. Don't try to be cute or clever or make something up. Maybe contact your current employer. If it's a no, say no. If it's a no, they may want to know why. And you can give them a specific reason. You can basically say, I'll be happy to discuss this at a future interview, or explain the circumstances in a future interview. You can answer that almost any way you want. What's your legal status to work in the United States? In some instances, that's a required question. Be prepared for that. Do you have any law violations or criminal record? Yeah, I mean, if you've been arrested, maybe you've not been convicted, but have an arrest record, you want to be honest. If you're asked, do you have any law violations, and you say no when you do, they will find that out and you'll be kicked out of the process. They won't go to you and say, well, why did you say no? You won't ever know. Why did you leave your previous job? If you're laid off, you were fired. Most people who leave a company are laid off. The different reasons for that, kind of have your own explanation of that. It doesn't have to be lengthy. It can be just really brief, but make sure you're prepared for that. What salary you're expecting? This is a common question. You can't say, well, I don't know, or, what's the job pay? My recommendation is to give a range of pay or ask for the range of pay for the position. Either of those are fine. You can say, can ask the interviewer, what's the pay range for this job? It's a director's job. What in an industry? Now, what you may not know is that most companies that are in the manufacturing service businesses, there's actually a book that Human Resources uses that gives pay ranges for certain titles in certain technical industries. So if we're in steel manufacturing, I can actually look up steel manufacturing for director in a company of 500 employees, and I can see what the range is for all the existing directors that are employed in the steel industry. And I can get an idea of what I should be to be competitive with my competitors in terms of offering salaries. I can understand where I need to be. But, I'd say, either give them a range or ask for a range. If you give a specific number, sometimes that gets to be a little bit of a hurdle. If you may go too low, you may go too high. So give a range. Apply for a job with the pre-printed applications. These are the ones you pick up in the lobby of a company. If you pick up applications in person, be ready to interview. Sometimes when you do this, the receptionist or the admin will let the HR department know you're there completing it, and they'll invite you in for an interview right there on the spot. Bring your driver's license or proof of identification. Come alone. Don't conduct any business during your visit. I mean, just basically be purposeful about this. Allow enough time for your visit. Give yourself plenty of time. Proofread your application. Make sure it's legible if you're hand completing it. Ask to have a copy made. Ask to meet the manager when you return the application. See if you can make an appointment. Just don't complete it, hand it in, and cross your fingers and hope for the best. Ask the receptionist, is there a chance for me to introduce myself to the manager? You're not asking for an interview. You're asking for an opportunity to meet the person face to face. So when you say, is the manager available? I'd like to introduce myself to him or her. You may have the opportunity to kind of get the process started. If, in almost any case, when you apply online, if you apply face to face, I would say make a habit for you in a professional way of contacting the company no sooner than a week, but maybe 10 days, 7 to 10 business days to contact them and ask them 2 questions. Am I still in the process? And is there any additional information that you need from me? basically, and that's a professional way to do it. Now, you'd expect companies to be professional and actually keep you alerted to the process. That's almost never happens. It's very rare. The only people that get any real contact are the ones that fall out of the rejection process, that they actually want to invest time and money in interviewing, and then they'll engage. So, in today, because there's more applicants and it's a kind of an automated basis for many businesses, they have to take a lot more time to process the applications. So it's not unusual to make a phone call, but you don't want to be calling them every 3 or 4 days and anything new, can you get back to me, where am I, who, you don't want to get involved in that. You sound desperate and unprofessional. Applying for jobs online, there's a lot of sites out there. You can register for these. Sometimes it's free. For the most part, there's monster.com, there's LinkedIn, careers.com, indeed.com. And again, there are others. When you start registering and posting your resume, again, make sure you're posting, the resume you're posting. You don't want to be applying for a job and filling out a company's online application where they're comparing, contrasting your posting and LinkedIn. And if there's discrepancies of any kind, that can get you kicked out of the process. Using an application data sheet, all that I'm saying there is that, be mindful of the stuff you're populating in an online application. So you're consistent, addresses, dates, titles, compensation, references, who they are, what they are, experiences, strengths, weaknesses. Just make sure it's very consistent. Apply via email, put the job listing, title, or number in the subject line, attach a PDF of the resume or an application, test it by sending yourself or a friend and proofreading it. This is probably, of the 2 chapters, this is probably the most important of everything I'm going to tell you. Is I can't tell you how often I get inquiries or people asking me questions, whether it's a student in a classroom or it's out in the business marketplace, where it's so informal. I don't know who the person is. I don't know who they're associated with, what the student ID number is, what course they're asking about. I get emails from students, to give you an example. It's like, hi, Mr. Conrad, wondering how I did on the quiz last week. And there's a name, but there's no student ID number. There's no reference to the class. Sometimes I teach 7 classes of a term, and there are 25 to 30 students in each of those classes. Unless it's something absolutely urgent, I tend not to follow through on that until I get a chance to ask the student what's their student ID. And it's common. So get in the habit of helping the reader know who you are, why you're reaching out, what's the point of the process. If you have a job posting number on Indeed, put that job posting number in the memo in your email or the subject line. Or if there's a person specifically you've talked to, make sure that name is in that email, because it'll be ignored. Yeah. Okay. Save. When applying online, don't risk losing your entering data. This has happened. It happens often enough where it gets frustrating, where you're 4 pages into a 6-page application and something happens where you lose your data. So you almost always see at the bottom of a page you're completing a save button. Use that regularly. Make sure you keep, or do a page copy when it's up on your monitor, so you've got a copy of what's going on. Keep an open document and copy and paste. So this is like if I were looking at my screen, I'd have a document, a Word document with all of my data that I'm using to complete the application online, so I can just copy paste. Again, I'm not typing in. So if I'm typing each one, there's a propensity here to miss words, misspell words, or have some kind of a problem in the data entering. If I'm copying, pasting, you're almost assured you're going to get it right each time. Fill out the applications for high-speed internet is available. The only purpose there, that would be like on campus, for example, is that if you've got unreliable internet, you're your computer can go down, the website can disconnect, and you're going to be starting all over. So make sure you save passwords, all the relevant information. Applying using LinkedIn, it's unique. It's not only a professional online social network, but it's a job search and application engine. If you're not familiar with it, or you're kind of familiar with it, I would go in and really spend some time understanding the power of LinkedIn. There's some amazing things you can do to search for job openings, job opportunities, contacts within the industry, who they are, where they work. You can reach out, you can ask questions, you can have them help mentor you or coach you. It's a very, very useful, powerful tool. When you do something tedious, that's when you should check, double check, and triple check before calling complete. And I can't stress this enough. If you're going to send an email out to an employer, copy it into an email and send it to yourself or send it to a friend before you mail it out, and have them look at it and see if it's confused. You can put a grammatically correct, good sentence construction, good spelling, and it can be a very confusing email. You can compose a paragraph or two that is hard to read, can be nonsensical, because you're making presumptions about what the reader knows and understands about you. So again, and this is so critical. It's the early stages of applications. You think, okay, I've got to spend my time practicing interviewing and knowing how to answer questions. And there's certainly a preparation part to that, but you're never going to get to that unless you do this detail correctly and carefully. Okay, so this is phase 3, writing job applications. Now, the next chapter is writing effective tailored cover letters, which we'll get into. So at this point, are there any questions about this chapter? Oh, okay. All right, so let's get into the second chapter. All right. So let's see. All right. So I'm assuming everybody can see that, writing effective tailored cover letters. All right. So the title is really important. Effective meaning it's going to achieve what you want this cover letter to achieve. A cover letter is not kind of like a short version of your resume. It's not, identifying little things here and there and kind of putting it in a short form. The effectiveness of a cover letter means that what you're trying to do is get the person reading the cover letter to be enthused and curious enough about what's in your cover letter to want to look more carefully at your resume. It's like of a summer paperback book. It's the cover, the front and back covers that appeal to you to open the book up and start reading. That's what the cover letter is. The cover letter, having a cover letter for the most part is important, but the effectiveness of it is to get the person reading it to look into your circumstances further. The tailored part is that the cover letter shouldn't be a generic cover letter. I'm a nice person. I do great things. I've had a few things in leadership where I've helped people solve problems. Looking forward to talking with you further. Signed, Steve Conrad. Nope, that's not what you're doing. You want to look at a specific job posting, and you want to look at the job requirements and expectations, and you want to use the keywords in that job posting in your cover letter. That's tailoring the cover letter to the job posting. Now, what does that mean? That means every time you apply for a different job, you're going to have a different cover letter. And having different cover letters is okay. Different resumes, depending upon what you're changing, that's risky. But the cover letters are, you think of it as writing something to a good close friend. It's somewhat personal, somewhat easy to follow, easy to read. We'll look at how to structure them here in a minute. Okay, chapter 8 covers structuring a cover letter. There's a structure. There's 3 or 4 kind of components to it in an order. There's a formula. How to apply effective writing tips, customizing the content to the job description, describing how to distribute your job application package. So what 4 is referring to is that you may want to create a package that has your cover letter and your resume and you put them in a manila envelope. So you have 4 or 5 of these you carry around with you. They may be in your car, maybe at your desk, in your backpack. And whenever you're in a circumstance, you never know when you will or won't, you have an ability to hand someone your information. That's what that application package is referring to. All right. Goal in phase 3, which is applying for jobs, is use cover letters to encourage hiring managers and recruiters to choose to read your resume and applications so that you can get interviews. So this is a path you're walking on, and you can't begin the path by jumping over every step and getting to an interview. It's not impossible, but it's improbable, because the way the world works today, everybody's forced to follow the same steps in the path. And one of the first steps here is crafting a cover letter. Cover letter is probably, I'd say, as important, maybe more so than your resume. So this is critical. And if the cover letter is done well, it will lead the people who are doing the selection process to want to look more carefully at your resume. That's basically the bottom line. Okay, so the structure and cover letter, top part is address, date, and salutation. So it's a letter. And if you need help in kind of understanding how a business letter should be structured, you can go into Microsoft Word, and there are templates and examples. You can certainly search it online and look for examples of good cover letters. Generally speaking, your cover letter needs to look and feel like your resume. It should be clean, should be on white or off-white paper, should use no more than 2 different fonts, and font sizes should be similar so that it has a look and feel it matches. At the top, your address, your name, that information is important. One caveat, again, I've mentioned this before, if you have a cute or clever email address, don't use it in this process. I've seen students who've taken on a name like Batman or Slow Turtle or whatever, and you're asking the HR people to respond in a professional way to Batman, you're not going to be taken seriously. And again, if there's a reason to compare you to other people, and you have 2 other people that have normal constructed email and you're Batman, they may put you in the latter slot just because they're not sure. Why would somebody who's applying for a professional position use somewhat of an unprofessional or casual email address? So create a new one. Content. So here's kind of an example of the structure of a cover letter. There's an opening in the cover letter, like a 2 or 3 sentences. There's a sales pitch. Now, sales pitch, you can phrase that any way you want to, but in effect, what you're doing in the second paragraph is you're explaining why it's important for the company to continue to look at you as a candidate. The closing piece is also called, you're basically closing the letter off by some phraseology like looking forward to continuing the process. Please reach out if you have any extra questions. I'd like to know if it's appropriate, if I can contact you in 10 days to 2 weeks to follow up and see if there's any more information you need, however you want to do that, and there's a signature. That's pretty much it. So the opening, introduce yourself, state your purpose, name the position, explain why you're interested, name people who are connected to both of you. If you have a common introduction from someone who's maybe already employed at the company, you want to mention that in the first paragraph. So introducing yourself, who are you? This gets back to that first week we did where you really get to know yourself well. What's your purpose? I'm aspiring to help a company. Let me say something else in this. The message after reading this should be how you can help the company. The message after reading this shouldn't be, here's how good I am, and here's why you should think about hiring me, or here's what you can do for me, or here's what I'm looking for in an employer. Don't do that. the employer's got a problem. They've got an empty seat and they've got work piling up, and they're looking for somebody with skills and talents that can come in and pick up that job and do it without a lot of training and supervision. What you want to do in the opening here is you want to express what kind of work opportunity, for example, you're looking for, where you can actually contribute and help the company succeed, help the company in sales and marketing and accounting, taxes, payroll, accounts receivable, accounts payable. You're learning for challenges to help you grow and expand and grow with the company. Those are all fair ways to express that. The sales pitch, market yourself with a written version of your 30-second commercial. Now you can go back to the first week, or I think second week, where it'll help you craft a 30-second commercial, which is words you use to express your interest in the job. It's the answer to the question about, what's your name and who are you? A lot of us get that question in certain circumstances, and we have to invent an answer at that moment. Impulsively. And many times we don't do a very good job of expressing who we are. Many times we talk too much about who we are. We're not sure what the person's looking for. We don't want to disappoint them, so we talk too much. Give a 30-second commercial. Most of the time when you're doing this kind of 30, it can be 60 seconds. It's just a brief explanation of who you are. I'm Steve Conrad. I'm currently a faculty member at Mount Hood Community College, teaching business courses, particularly in the entrepreneurial area. I've got quite an extensive experience as an entrepreneur, and it's a lot of value for me to help students understand the importance and how to open and manage a successful business. Now, there's enough in that comment, that commercial, where someone's going to say, wow, tell me more about students. Tell me more about how your experience as an entrepreneur. Tell me, so you can keep the conversation going that way. Closing in the cover letter, ask for a meeting, a call, an interview. It's called a call to action. It's basically not leaving it open-ended. Where I said earlier, I'd like to have the opportunity to give you a call in 10 days or 2 weeks to follow up and see if you need more information. That's a call to action. So the message you're giving in the cover letter is that this is the beginning of a process. This isn't a transaction where I give you information and I wait for you to decide. We're engaged in the conversation, and that's what the closing's trying to set up. And then, of course, you sign it. Tips for writing effective cover letters. Address the letter appropriately and make it look good. Looking good just means it's easy to read. You got to remember, part of your job in this process of looking for a career is helping the employer know who you are and making it easy for them to analyze and look at you as a good candidate. If you're only answering questions in a limited way, or you're putting them through the effort of doing background and digging, it's not going to help you. It's a big job, many applicants. You want to try to make it easy as you can. You want to tell them how you can help the company. Help them answer that question. So tips for writing effective cover letters. There are many templates. Many of them are free online. Indeed.com has samples. LinkedIn has sample cover letters that you can use. Set up a template and save your information to the template. And every time you look at a job posting, adapt the information in your template to fit that particular job description, the keywords. Use your personal brand statement. Stories are often overlooked. A lot of us tend to try to explain who we are and what we're about by reciting achievements. Went to school here, got this degree, participated in this sport, participated in this business, this industry, this nonprofit, this volunteer work. There's a lot of power in telling people that information, but in story form. When I was in college, I was taking business courses, and one of the courses I came across was a course on insurance, and it got my attention. And I spent a lot of time reading the textbook what I otherwise wouldn't pay too much close attention to. I went to the faculty member and asked them about the insurance industry, where were the work opportunities. That led to the faculty member realizing I was serious, and they introduced me to 2 or 3 employers. And I was doing interviews while I was still a junior in college on opportunities in the insurance industry. You've all got stories. You've got elements. When someone says, tell me about a position where you were in where you had to show your leadership, that can be as simple as a basketball camp. It could be something in your church. It can be something very simple, but you tell a story. Use the three-part structure, why you want to connect with them, in the cover letter. Why is it important for you to connect with them? You respect their company. You aspire to work with their company. You can help their company. Why they want to connect with you. What would be the reason that XYZ company should talk to you? Give them some reasons. Request a time and a date to connect. So you're believe it or not, when you're looking for a job, when you're in the career business, you're in sales. You're in the sales. It's loosely, your title's not salesman, but you're in sales. You're out looking in the marketplace for companies that have problems. And the nature of the problems are suited and matched to your skill set that you can help them solve that. But they don't know who you are. They don't know how to find you. They don't know how to understand how that process can work where you can help them. So that's where you've got to help. Selling means solving problems in this case. It's not pitching and exaggerating and making promises you can't keep, the ugly part of sales that we always think about. It's really problem solving. And you've got to be clear enough and convicted enough about your skill sets and habits where you can tell an employer, I can help you. I've done this before. I've seen this before. I can help you. I can help you solve this problem. Be positive and truthful, write clearly and concisely, describe your abilities in specific measurable terms, read it aloud and listen for likability and sincerity. Reading aloud to a friend, having a friend read it to you, the cover letter, is immense help. So always think about how to edit and craft your cover letter. Have people read it, give you feedback, have people read it to you and see how it sounds to you. Address the letter appropriately, name of the person to contact. Sometimes you don't know the contact, so sometimes you'll put the human resources department down. Many times you can go into LinkedIn, you can go into the company's website and identify the name of somebody to address it to. And if it's not perfectly correct, they can pass it on to the right person. Search the company's website, contact other employees. Sometimes it'll be posted in the listing. Make it look good, keep it clean and simple. The cover letter, same with your resume. Use a similar style letter in your resume, same fonts, print on white or cream colored 8.5 by 11 paper. Use 1-inch margins, which is standard. Use a common font like Times Roman or Arial. Don't use headers like it's a paper from college. Sometimes it's confusing to the software that's kind of scanning, and it just makes it more complex. Don't use decorations, pictures. There's an argument that pictures are important. Put your picture on LinkedIn. Don't put it on your resume. Your resume will only get looked at in the final stages of the process, not the beginning. And the problem with a photograph, believe it or not, there's a few problems. One is that scanners sometimes get confused and can't read that, will kick it out. Another one is that by putting your picture on there, you disclose your race, maybe in some imposed or implied discrimination can be used with your picture. It's why a lot of employers in the process of interviewing won't take your picture because it can be construed as discriminatory. Don't use a decoration unless you're applying for an art position or a decorating or remodeling position. Avoid decorations, excessive formatting, 3 or 4 different fonts, underlines, shadows, colors. Don't use colors. Many of the scanners can't find, some blues and reds. Sign it, proofread it again and again. Just keep proofreading it. Types of things you should customize so that you fit with the job by using terms from the listings. Go into the job description and job requirements and start to pull words out. Usually, again, the company, when they put a job posting out, the first 2 or 3 job requirements or expectations are the ones you want to focus on. The other ones are important, but the ones that are really critical are usually listed early in the process. Research the company industry, add relevant comments and demonstrate your knowledge. If it's in accounting, demonstrate that you understand the pressures the accounting profession's undergoing or payroll is undergoing, or where are the shifts and concerns and risks in the accounting industry, or for a business that needs accounting help. Use personalized, specialized terminology. If you're in the packaging business, there's terms that are used. If any of you've been in the service, there's acronyms and words that are used to describe things. It's the same thing. If you're applying to Nike or Adidas, in those shoe industries, there are words that are used that are short form, that are common, understood, that you want to use in your cover letter. And you want to make sure you use it correctly. Emphasize how you can meet the employer's needs and give examples. You can use examples of how you solve problems in prior occupations where you can recognize this particular problem the employer has is similar. So, and again, these are the stories you can tell. Edit text very carefully. Distribute your package, a printed cover letter, online application with plain text cover letter, hand-delivered job application package, or an email job application package. You kind of zip together your resume and cover letter. And just, once you set this in motion, you're engaged in a conversation. This isn't a game of I tap you on the shoulder and then I wait for you to tap me on the shoulder, then I tap you on the shoulder. We're facing each other and we're having a dialogue. And if and until you, the employer, decide I'm not a good fit, and you're going to move on, we keep the discussion going. I don't end my conversations without asking or telling you about the next step. When should we talk again? How soon should we talk again? What information do you need? What can I elaborate on? What are the specific questions you have? Would you like me to demonstrate how I know certain aspects of the industry? Don't be viewed as careless. This is critical on the stage. You can be careless later in the interviewing process. Some of that's forgivable, but up front here, it's not. Most common errors: forgetting to include your resume. You send an email off or a letter off and you've forgotten to include it. Neglecting to attach a document to an email message. That happens a lot. So before you hit send, make sure you read it and proofread it. Just because there's a spell check doesn't mean it's right, because you can use homonyms. You can use the word to. You have T-O, T-O-O, T-W-O. You can, an email will get spell checked correctly because you spelled it. But if you're sending something to someone and it's T-W-O, that's a disaster. Don't forget your contact information. Include it. Encourage them to contact you. Include the date, the salutation, the closing on the cover letter, the context and the ask, meaning the request for action, and then your signature. Now, sometimes the action is you reaching out to them as opposed to imposing on them some activity. Twitter is sometimes a place where you can find job opportunities and job leads. In chats, simple search can yield hundreds of people. Read tweets sent out by select companies to learn what's new. You go in and follow employees with the company. Sometimes there are employee groups. Believe it or not, sometimes companies have baseball, softball teams, bowling teams, and you can be part of and observe and read their activity on Twitter or Facebook. And you can learn an awful lot about the company and who's there and what they do. Composite stories from real people. There's just a couple of examples. This is not a real person, but Evan, on prospective cover letters, found good companies, but without any job openings, used LinkedIn to find a company employees, sent his resume with a customized cover letter directly to them. So now again, remember, that seems silly, but remember, half the jobs that exist and are open today will never get posted online. You'll never see them. They get filled inside the company, or they're using a different process that HR wants the company to use, and those jobs get filled. Deidre, customized cover letter, read job description, customized cover letter with 3 bulleted examples of how she met the requirement. That's another way to demonstrate you're a good fit. Think about it. To get noticed, begin by noticing others first. To encourage others to care about you, begin to care about them first. What you do reflects back toward you. Your cover letter tells the reader who you are, be yourself. So what does this mean? It means, a lot of, again, we confuse when we're out looking for job opportunities, we confuse this idea that I've got to get out, I've got to have and if I'm in sales, I got to have a brochure. My brochure is my resume and cover letter, and I've got to go pitch myself and sell myself. And then I'm hoping that by random, I'm going to talk with someone who's going to realize I'm a good fit. And maybe by accident, I get into a discussion. What you want to do is you know yourself well enough and be prepared, but go out and talk to people about their problems and ask employers about their problems. What are their issues? What was the person doing that held a job prior? What was the challenge, the first number one challenge they had? How did they solve it? What was the company's responsibilities in helping that employee solve the problem? If you were to do it over again, how would you do it differently? You're like this, a physician. In order to make a good diagnosis, they have to ask a lot of questions and get information. You can't just walk into an organization, start talking about yourself and expect them to figure out how you fit into their company. You've got to get them engaged in telling you about them. So think of yourself like a physician who's got somebody sick in the lobby, and you don't know anything about them. You don't know what they've got, how sick they are, how long it's been. So you and the nurse get involved in a question process of gathering information to narrow it down. And in that ability to narrow it down, you develop a relationship with the person in the company, but you're also better suited to know that if this job matches you. And if it doesn't, you can avoid it. Okay, so that's chapter 7 and 8. Next week, we're going to get into knowing the interview essentials and start talking about what happens when you're in front of someone, how you're going to stand out, how you leverage the work you've done up to this point with your cover letter and your resume and your online applications, and how you turn that interview into a very valuable experience for the employer. So, okay, time for questions. No
I have a question about
Luis?
the first, chapter we went over.
No? Hold on. I'm screwing up here. Okay, Luis, you got a question?
Yeah, so I was wondering what was the reason that it can be bad if you give references before they're asked for?
Say, what was the problem with giving references before they ask for them?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things. One is it's a common business process that you offer in your resume references upon request. You don't include it. That used to be, 15 or 20 years ago, you'd include the references with your resume when you submitted it. Now you offer to provide them if they're requested. Now, there's a couple things going on. One is the company will want resume or references, but they don't want them now because they're not ready to process them. They're going to look at your resume, do background checks, and they don't want to be thinking about your references until they're ready to do that. The other part of this is that if you keep putting your references out every time you apply somewhere, your references are going to start getting phone calls and they won't know, be able to sort out one from the other. So you want to be careful, when you don't provide them and they ask for them, you provide them and then you contact your references and say, if you're a reference of mine, I'd say, Luis, thank you for being a reference. I just submitted I'm in the application process with Nike. They asked me today for references and I provided your information. So you may get a phone call in the next week or two from them asking about me and information about me, but I wanted to alert you to that. So now Luis knows that he doesn't have to worry about getting a random phone call because I'm going to tell him when I've given references out, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. And you always, to the degree you can, you want 3 or 4 references and you want to kind of keep them on top of your process. You don't want to contact them 4 to 6 weeks. You want to, every couple of weeks, just send an email out, excited in the process. I'm in the process with a few companies, just wanted to keep you posted. People that offer to help you want you to tell them how you're doing. They want feedback. Even if there's nothing really to talk about except that you're still in the process, you want to keep your references involved in your process and keep communicating with them all the way up until the time you get a job offer, and then you keep that process going. Other questions?
Okay.
You probably can figure out by now that career management's a big deal. Prior to this course, you probably thought, I get a resume together, I got to send it out, maybe get ready for a phone call or an interview. It's a lot more to that. If you want to have a predictable process where you can be sure you're going to surface job opportunities, good ones, you've got to approach this like seriously as a project, as there's a science to it. What's interesting and helpful is that to the degree you follow what we've been talking about, you'll separate. There probably aren't 1 in 50 that are doing what I'm suggesting you should do. Everyone else is doing the same, common rat race, resume, apply, wait for the phone to ring. No one's assertively getting into the process. And frankly, that's where the job opportunities come from, is actively managing your career process. Now, the thing I'll leave you with today is that once you find your job, this whole process doesn't go away. What you should be doing is continuing to network with people, get to know people, not necessarily distributing your resume or cover letter, but keeping your resume and cover letter up to date. Meet with people, talk with people, have coffee with people, go to business association meetings, keep engaging people to keep your skills sharp. In this day and age, your father or grandfather may have worked for a company for 40 or 50 years till they retire. Not happening today. Doesn't happen today for a lot of reasons. So you have to be kind of on your toes and kind of ready to fire up your process, your career management process, if and when the time comes where you either want to quit or you get laid off. Okay, that's it for today. We're going to cover chapters 9 and 10 next week. If you think of something after we get off the call, let me know. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you here again next week at 10:30, and we'll pick up the next 2 chapters.
Thank you.
All right, have a great weekend.